Prynhawn da, good afternoon. This is Benjamin, and today we're talking about French words and Welsh words. How similar are these two languages? Well, French is from the Romance language family, and Welsh is from the Celtic language family, the British branch of that family. But both these languages are from Indo-European roots, and so I just want to show you quickly how similar they can be for basic words. So let's get started. The first word is the word for Wales. In Welsh, Cymru. Cymru. And in French, le Pays de Galles. Now, in Welsh, this literally means land of our people, or our fellow compatriots, basically. But in French, this is a bit of French nationalist romanticism, the Gauls. So they view we Welsh as coming from the Gauls, which we are related, but it's a bit of a fantastical notion to think that we're from that root explicitly. The next one, France. In Welsh, Ffrainc. And this, of course, comes from the Franks. We think initially that Ffrainc was a plural form for French people, maybe, but we're not entirely sure. In any case, it's Ffrainc now. And the word for France in French, of course, is France, from the Franks. There is another British-speaking people across the water under the French state, the Bretons, and our word for them in Welsh is Llydaw. Llydaw, literally meaning broadly quiet. There's a myth about people cutting out the tongues of people so that they did not speak another language, but that's another time. And in French, Bretagne. Bretagne. They see them as the Little Britain, essentially, in French. Another regional area, Flanders. In Welsh, we have our own name for this, Flandres. Flandres. And in French, le Flandre. Le Flandre. Moving on, the word for a bell. In Welsh, cloch. Cloch. There's all kinds of expressions with this, like canny cloch. Does it kind of ring a bell? To make sense. And in French, cloche. Quite similar, but the CH is different, and this carries on in quite a few words. Cloche. Moving on, cow is buch in Welsh. Buch. And in French, une vache. Vache. And that B and V interchange across Latin and Celtic languages quite a bit. It's a spectrum within the Indo-European spectrum. And that CH again, you can tell it's from a very similar, very old root. The word for wax is a nice word in Welsh. Cwyr. Cwyr. And in French, la cire. Notice that C is there, but it's a S sound. La cire. And this orthography in French, which is quite different in times, you can tell that it used to be a different pronunciation, and it would have been more similar to Welsh in the past. The word for a feather in Welsh is plien. Plien. It's feminine, just as the word for feather in French is feminine. La plume. La plume. Quite similar. The word for arm in Welsh is braich. Braich. In French, le bras. Bras. The word for a horse in Welsh actually comes from Old French, ceffyl in Welsh, ceffyl. And in French, cheval, le cheval. You get your word for chivalry from this kind of notion. The word for a rock in Welsh, carreg. And in French, le roche, le roche. Not similar at all. A bowl in Welsh is tarw, tarw. French is from the same root, obviously. Litro, litro. The word for mother in Welsh, mam, mam. And in French, la mère, mère. I did that because I wanted to explain to you as well that the word for mother, most languages in the world have an sound or an sound at the beginning of the word for mother. So almost any language that you will learn, the word for mother has that root, and I find that almost a spiritual connection with the language in that it's passed down through mothers in a way. Let's move on. The word for wind in Welsh is gwynt, gwynt. And in French, le vent, le vent. Now, a lot of words in French end with T and they're not pronounced. And a lot of words in literary Welsh were NT ending and have dropped it as well. That's a trajectory that these two languages share. A lot of the older words end in NT that now just end in an N sound. But in this case, the word for wind in Welsh, gwynt, does hold that. And that gwa at the beginning and that V sound beginning in French. That's one change that British languages went through as Rome influenced and changed our language. To swim, novio, novio. And in French, nager, nager. And you'll find across many Indo-European languages the word for swim does begin with an N. That's some kind of very old root there. The N beginning for to swim. Next, the word for a crow in Welsh, bran, bran. And in French, le corbeau, le corbeau. Not very similar. Silver in Welsh is arian. This is also the word for money. And in French, the word for silver is l'argent. And this is also the word for money. So I find it very interesting that both of those mix the word for silver with the word for money. Maybe there was an interchange there. The word for gold in Welsh, aur. And in French, l'or. Again, that's very similar, and it makes me think that there was a continued financial activity between us over many years. The word for mountain in Welsh is mynydd, mynydd. And in French, le montagne, montagne. And when you've come down from the mountain, you might need a bit of soap. So the word for soap is, in Welsh, sebon, sebon. And in French, it's quite similar. Le savon, le savon. I hoped you liked that video. I wanted to show you that there are many similarities between we Celtic speakers and Romance speakers with their Latin root. We in Welsh and the Romance languages, we broke off the Indo-European tree at the same time, roughly, compared to Germanic and Slavic and others, which were a different time period. We're talking thousands of years ago. And because of that, not only are there similarities between us, but there's similarities in how we shape words and languages. So Celtic, we're not so mysterious or different. we're a major European language like Romance. If you liked that video, please leave a thumbs up or a comment. I'm happy to answer your questions. For those of you who support me on Patreon, many thanks indeed. You help the channel to keep going. And we'll see you in the next episode as we continue with the history series that I'm doing for you.